name is Christian Rambeau, and I'm a graduate of the Walton College of Business. I was in Dr. Rogelio Contreras' social entrepreneurship class. I participated for 2 years in the Social Innovation Challenge.
Yes, I'm Chase. Tosh and I started a permaculture design business a few years ago. I graduated from the U of A in May, and I studied anthropology, sustainability, and GIS.
Yep, and my name is Tosh, and as Chase said, we have a permaculture design business here in Fayetteville doing edible landscaping and ecological design.
Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get into the presentation.
Yeah, do share screen. And launch.
Cool. All right, so here's our initiative for the Eco Archipelago. What we're going to talk to y'all a little bit today is about this initiative, as well as what permaculture is, some of the issues that we're facing right now as a society, whether they be social issues as well as ecological issues, and how permaculture actually seeks to solve those issues, and tie that in with the Eco Archipelago initiative. So this picture kind of gives an example of the vision of what Eco Archipelago can be. As the name suggests, it's a series of food forest or green eco islands around the city of Fayetteville, and each of them serve a different function. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that with you now.
All right, so the goal of this hits on all of these different issues. It's economic, it's environmental, and it's social. And these things are all integrated, and permaculture really does a holistic job of targeting all these issues. So what is permaculture? Permaculture is the conscious design of life-supporting systems which have the diversity, stability, and resilience of natural ecosystems. So it's an applied design methodology for sustainability. And food forestry, it's a big component and technique, if you will, that's used in permaculture, where you mimic a natural ecosystem that is self-sustaining and self-supporting, and you select for each of these species and these niches to be as functional as possible and provide as many different yields as you can.
Cool. So we'll look at a few examples of some of the places around town which we think would be perfect to implement some permaculture. And so right here we have, all these areas along the bike trail, which a lot of them are not being used, and there's invasives. And so these are new spots that could have edible landscaping and new recreational areas, as well as areas like Walker Park, which could have larger scale community food forests, allotment plots for people who don't have garden space at home, and could be just a space for workshops and demonstrations and a place to really grow community. And so then we have all these other little places around town, these little small grassy strips and kind of island, parking lot islands, which are underused and basically have all of these lawn care costs, which could really transform our landscape and do more of this edible landscaping in places where, pedestrians can walk in and get some sort of refreshing, seasonal berry, for example. And finally, the U of A is a great target for permaculture. So we have these places around campus that are also not being used, and these could be transformed into food forestry, which would give students a place to forage and get out of the sun and relax and study, and could provide all of these amazing research opportunities to study, innovative agriculture and urban regenerative agriculture.
Okay, so one of the main things that we're focusing on with permaculture and the food forestry and Eco Archipelago is food insecurity. So we actually have a high level of food insecurity here in Northwest Arkansas, as well as people living in poverty. So with food forestry, having edible landscapes, you're obviously providing food to people who otherwise wouldn't have any. And so it just acts as a way to mitigate some of the stresses and issues that we have with food insecurity here in Northwest Arkansas. And so part of these maps are showing where are the areas that are most affected. And we've identified those areas, and we recognize that strategically going forward, what we'd like to do is put our food forests and implement permaculture in these areas specifically. Another thing that we're addressing is flooding, erosion, watershed stress. Permaculture really focuses on water, and how water is eroding our landscape, how it's damaging the soil. We've had major issues with flash flooding here in Northwest Arkansas specifically. And so part of what permaculture seeks to do is use natural structures part of the landscape to help mitigate runoff and the stress that is put on our watershed. And as well as pollinator and wildlife habitats, we all know the importance of these organisms for providing food for our population. We want to see a reverse in the pollinator decline. And with permaculture, what we're doing is we're utilizing certain species of plants that attract these organisms, that provide a good habitat for these organisms to reproduce and to continue to pollinate. That way we can ensure that we have food for future generations.
All right, and soil erosion is another thing that ties into this, because when you plant diverse plant communities, all of these different root layers lock the soil together and provide structure and prevent that from washing out, as well as increasing infiltration. So some of that rainwater is actually sinking into the ground rather than building up momentum and running across the landscape with enough force to really degrade the soil. And so this is a spot on campus that frequently experience erosion every time it rains, and people end up walking through the muddy areas. And so we can both create food in these spaces and be reversing these negative problems of urbanization. And invasive takeover. So a lot of these spaces that we're targeting are currently overrun with invasive plant species, which are detrimental to the native wildlife, as well as they limit accessibility and visibility to people walking by. And so by taking these out and replacing them with chosen plant species, we help prevent those invasive plants from coming back in and taking that space, and end up providing all these extra ecological functions at the same time. And there's so many issues that this addresses. It would take far too long to really go deep into all of them. But as you can imagine, it helps with the urban heat island effect, and it sequesters carbon, and just a variety of issues are holistically confronted with this project.
Cool. So yeah, let's look at what this might look like on our landscape. And so this is a spot that's real close to a few of our homes that we see all the time that is just being unused and invasives are moving in. And so we chose to take this spot and create an image that would show you what this would actually look like on the ground. So as you can see here, this might be what one of these projects would look like. And so you have these different forest layers, different plant communities, and different space for people to get in there and look around and forage, seeding. And as you can see from before, it really beautifies the landscape as well. So this is an example of someone who has really taken an initiative and transformed the culture in their immediate landscape. And so we won't go into too much depth, but if you want to see another really awesome project of someone who's doing that, look into Ron Finley. He has a great TED Talk. As well, we look at Seattle's food forest. They have a 7-acre food forest that they've been working on for 10 years. And it's just a really incredible model of what you can do on public land and grow community and provide publicly accessible food throughout your urban environment. And this is nothing new. There are actually 70 of these registered projects along throughout the nation. And so it's showing the demand and the interest in this sort of movement. And so, Fayetteville is just such a perfect place to kind of get on board with this.
Okay, so we're a little short on time, so I apologize if I move quickly through this. One of the beauties of using permaculture is that over time, your operating costs actually go down while your return increases. And so with every installation, you're actually generating new resources that you can use for future food forests, future installations, right? And so because these systems actually mimic natural ecosystems, you don't actually have to continue to do maintenance over time. Once it's established, it begins to kind of self-maintenance itself. And you can utilize different plants from previous guilds and use them to plant new guilds as well.
All right, and so the soil food web is really what makes this work and makes it self-maintaining. So we're trying to get back this soil microbiology that does all the work for us. It tills and aerates the soil, it cycles these nutrients and fertilizes it. And so this is the real science behind it, of why this is successful. And this is the goal of what we want to achieve in these soils. And so then this is the community food web that we would like to create. So we would be networking with all of these nonprofits and local businesses that all share this common goal of uplifting our community and fighting food insecurity. And so we want to link together a network of all of these things to where we can cycle nutrients between our community and uplift those who need it the most. And then, so permaculture, it as you can tell, it hits on all of these different topics. It's ecological, improves the environment, it's social and builds community identity and mental health and food insecurity, and it's economic because it creates new supply and demand networks and reduces fossil fuel usage. And there's just a litany of things that this project can address.
All right, so that's the end of the presentation. Appreciate you taking the time to listen. Did want to say something real quick about my experience. I know that we're short on time, but my experience with social entrepreneurship, I would say the main advice I would give is whenever you're seeking out a project, find something you're passionate about. I would move beyond the idea that this is just to get a grade. It's obviously a lot more than that. It's a cool opportunity to partner with a local business, to partner with someone who has a cool vision, who sees an opportunity to make improvements in our society. So get behind something that you are passionate about. That's my biggest advice. It's going to make the project far more fulfilling and satisfying, and more worth your while. So it's an awesome opportunity to be a part of it. Really be grateful that you get to be a part of the Social Entrepreneurship Challenge. Work with Dr. Rogelio Contreras and others in that organization, because they're amazing people and they changed my life. They're really inspirational, and they're the reason that I got on board to do this, because of what I learned working with them.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. I have a question. So this is your team is such a great example how you combine such different backgrounds in different areas and business and sciences and everything to create one very complex and meaningful thing. So how was it difficult, and what were the challenges at the beginning when you first came together and you decided to do something to kick off? So what were the challenges and how did you manage to cope with them?
Yeah.
Honestly,
Well, I mean, I think it is important that we all have different skills, and because this is such a wide-reaching thing, like Chase and I don't have the same expertise in the business world and with networking and things that Christian has experience with. And then he doesn't have as much experience in the permaculture world, but is passionate about what we do. And so him coming to us with this energy really helped us bring it together, and then build the team even further and recruit people who they're all passionate about this goal, but independently, none of us could have done this by ourselves.
Yeah. Quickly, the passion was there, and so honestly, it's been effortless so far. It's been driving us forward, and it's just gone really well so far.
We've been fortunate in that respect because we were friends. We knew each other prior to this. There was a recent presentation that Chase gave that really inspired me, and I said, "Hey, man, let me get on board. I know Dr. Rogelio. I want to introduce this idea to him." But one of the early challenges is obviously figuring out where each person plays a role. What role are they there to play? So the challenge is kind of letting the ego dissolve. This isn't about me. This isn't about any one of us. This is a bigger project. This is something that's beyond ourselves. So oftentimes people want to claim ownership. They want to, say, "Oh, this is my idea. This belongs to me." But really, it's a shared effort. So just finding your lane, finding your talent, figuring out what you have to offer, and really sticking with that and going with that, and acknowledging the talents in other people and letting everyone have a space to input. Those can be some early challenges you'll face. So just listen always listen to other people and what they have to say.
Yeah, I understand how important is this also with my teams. That's great. Thank you. Liz, do you have a question, or I can ask another one then after?
Hi. Thank you very much for meeting with us. We really appreciate it. I have one question, and I'm sorry if you already mentioned it. But how did you realize that there was a market for this in Arkansas? Was it difficult to realize that? And then how did you communicate to people that this was going to be something, and that there was like a market for people? And then how do you market itself to the people around?
Right. I mean, I feel like or maybe all of us pretty regularly see people on social media like talking about these kind of ideas. And I remember with the Seattle Food Forest, Beacon Hill, when they first started, seeing just article after article circulating and people saying, oh, this is so cool. And then a lot of people wanting to help with food insecurity and be more sustainable in their own lives. And I could really see the demand for that in the populace. And I think so many people are aware of the problems, but not enough people are aware of potential solutions. And so we really wanted this to be like a solution-oriented thing that tapped into that energy that's out there of people hungry for solutions. And so we wanted to create it where it would be exciting for people to want to come on board and feel some ownership and be a part of it.
Yeah, so when we initially reached out to Dr. Rogelio, he pointed us in the direction to Partners for Better Housing. And whenever we shared this with Tiffany, and I'm forgetting her last name, but some of you may know her with Partners for Better Housing, she instantly responded with an article. She said, oh yeah, they're doing this in my hometown in Atlanta. And so we're seeing a rise of this happening, but also there's a huge industry. There's a huge, area in education where people are beginning to study permaculture, where engineers who are highly sought after are teaching courses in permaculture design. So we're seeing this rise up in multiple different areas. And as we showed, there's 70 different locations around the United States where this is taking place. There's entire books written on permaculture. And I think people are beginning to understand we need to change the way that we're interacting with our environment. It's not sustainable. We need to come up with some sustainable solutions if we're going to continue to live harmoniously on this planet.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Yeah, one last question I would ask. What was your project in social entrepreneurship class? Your final project, what was that about? And what was your experience with this?
Yeah, so the project I did with Dr. Contreras was we worked with a homegrown music festival. They were trying to come up with a solution to make their music festival financially viable, financially sustainable. One of the solutions that we offered and that we went ahead with was I think we called it Ozark Natural Food Truck. So it was a food truck that actually served as a second source of income, and it offered a number of different sustainability elements. So the food truck was completely carbon neutral. We used all local food. It kind of went directly in line with how the music festival, kind of their philosophy. And so it was taking a shot at trying to figure out how can we generate additional income. The other projects we did real quickly was actually with the little free pantry. And so that was not with Dr. Contreras, but it was part of the Social Innovation Challenge. And one of the main initiatives we did was actually develop a survey and do some analysis and try and figure out where these need to be placed to be most effective, and trying to figure out what types of items do they want to see in the little free pantry, different things like that. So it was just trying to gather information. Little Free Pantry was not a nonprofit. As far as I knew, it was just a grassroots movement. And so our goal was to generate more data and more information to try and figure out how to best implement it around the city. But I was really inspired by food insecurity, the idea of that it's actually pretty prevalent here in Northwest Arkansas. And I forget the numbers, but I think when you include children, it was 1 in 4 or 1 in 5. It was very, very high. And so, this kind of resonated with me because it does speak to the idea of addressing food insecurity.
Mm-hmm. And what would be your advice to yourself this years when you've been doing these projects from now?
Yeah. My advice to myself, wow, that's a difficult question. You know, I think that one of the shortcomings that we had was developing a really good line of communication with people on the project, with Homegrown Music Festival, and even partners with Little Free Pantry. And so I think really trying to build a solid network of communication, branching out and expanding that network, and seeking advice, seeking information from people in the community who have had experience in these areas with project development and community organizing. That would have been some advice that I'd given to myself, is go out, step outside your comfort zone, and seek advice and knowledge from people who have been down this road and done it before. That can be fun, enlightening, challenging, and it's going to yield better results for your project.